Hello everybody, I'm Matt and welcome to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Superman issue 11 by Jason Aaron, Carmine Di and Ulysses Areola. Superman's torture at the hands of Ra's al Ghul and Brainiac continues this issue as the young Kal watches his parents be tried and convicted of multiple crimes by the Science Council of Krypton, who also sentenced Kal-El to 20 years in the Phantom Zone for just being an orphan. Soldiers come to arrest Kal, whose emotions take control and his heat vision kicks in, obliterating the soldiers and the Science Council. Now this isn't actually happening, this is all Kal's kryptonite-induced nightmares that Brainiac is bombarding his mind with in the Lazarus Court facility in Greenland. Brainiac believes that if they continue this type of torture on his Kryptonian mind, he'll be ready to move to the Earth phase of his rebirth as the son of the demon. Ra's al Ghul demands results, threatening Brainiac should he fail. I really love how Aaron sells the utter disgust that Ra's and Talia both have for Brainiac and having to work with him, this alien scum from another world, trying to, take over their world that they are trying to quote-unquote save. They fucking hate his guts and they don't mince words when telling him such. Ra's also wants Kal to be his son is such an interesting idea, and Aaron framing it in a way where Ra's is just wanting the boy to see the truth so they can get to work to save the world is cool. Like, does Ra's actually want to save the world? Since usually he's an eco-terrorist who takes things to the nth extreme, so he usually wants the Earth to live and be better, albeit in a very warped way that probably leads to billions if not millions of deaths. The Al Ghuls leave and Brainiac continues his work, knowing that he will break Superman since now he has neutralized Soul, keeping the red dust contained away in a tube from Kal-El. There is really nothing to stop him from getting into the mind of the hero. There is a really neat bit here where one of the Brainiac copies, Brainiac 9, thinks that they should call the Kryptonian meteorite Brainiac made Kryptonite, but Brainiac 1 demands he stop talking and cut his own tongue out and return it to the parts department. These little lines like this are just so fun. I love mentioning stuff like the parts department of the Brainiac drones and the demerit point system that they have. Just adds to the richness and depth of this Brainiac. He's got this caste system going even in his own copies, and despite him breaking from his original programming, which was all of this, he has still fallen back into the old ways, and he doesn't really seem to either know that or actually really even care, since he's getting what he wants. There's also a really interesting line here about Brainiac being on Earth since 1938, which was the year Superman actually begun properly as a character in comics. I bet this is also meaning that Brainiac was the Roswell alien and just kind of the genesis of alien life interacting with Earth maybe, which is kind of scary to think about. Brainiac continues to push Kal-El into more nightmares, making him kill his people over and over and over again, hoping Superman will soon realize that death is all these people deserve. Lois and Jimmy meanwhile aren't faring any better as Talia beats them around their prison cell. Lois wants her just to get it over with and kill them or make it a fair fight, which she knows the woman won't do. Talia knows that they will die eventually, but not by her hand. Jimmy is still shocked that Primus could betray the Omega Man like she did, and Lois tells him that the Omega and Lazarus are the same thing. It was all just one big lie. Talia says that the only truth in the world now is Lazarus, as humanity is corrupted right down to the very atoms, and only her Holy Father can save them from apocalypse. I thoroughly like this warring ideologies between these two women who have seen both ends of the spectrum when it comes to Lazarus and what they do in the world. Lois has seen through the Lazarus lie and what they really are, witnessing what they did in Pakistan with the peacemakers, and Talia is a product of that lie and has fully bought into it. She's been brainwashed by it. It's funny, she mentioned Lazarus and Omega being two sides of the same coin, and I really think that Talia and Lois are two sides of the same coin. Like Talia is the woman that Lois could have been, and Lois is who she really wants to be. It's also just great that Lois has her own villain in this series, and her own story isn't just servicing Superman's, and she isn't there to be a damsel in distress. She's got her own thing going on that's pretty much almost separate to Superman and just kind of intersects with his story every now and then. It's something we saw recently in the Superman movie, and I love that it's becoming a much more prevalent thing. Talia knows that Superman will lead the way to Lazarus's new world, but Lois knows the hero is stronger than she thinks and will resist. But Talia says the Father Box has told Talia everything she needs to know about Superman, making her know him better than Lois ever will, and he is currently at a breaking point. She decides to leave the cell, deciding to make the final test for Superman to be to kill Lois and Jimmy. 5 days later, Superman wakes from his nightmares, ripping out of his restraints and grabbing Brainiac, demanding the villain get out of his mind. Brainiac tells Superman that he has killed millions on Earth and other worlds, and when he's done, so will Superman. Kal knows that he won't kill millions, he'll just kill Brainiac. He begins choking the villain but stops, reminding himself that he is not a killer. He tries to appeal to the Brainiac drones, knowing that they too are prisoners and he can help them escape and give them liberty. His mind is racked with pain as Brainiac ends the program, enraged his simulation didn't work again. This stuff is so satisfying since Superman's goodness isn't something that's, surface or an act, or it's something that he has learned. It's something that is so ingrained in his being. It's at his core being. Even here in the Absolute Universe where, death and destruction and hatred and anger are like the norm, it's still there, and it's not something that can just be wiped away with a sponge. Brainiac getting so angry he can't just rewrite and erase everything to what he wants is so much fun, since we rarely get an emotional Brainiac. Usually he's very stoic and robotic and reserved, calculating, but here he's just having tantrums and getting violent with his drones, and it's just all just because he's not getting what he wants. He's a petulant child. Brainiac demands to know how his drones fucked up his plan, wanting them to remove more of their own body parts as punishment. On day 12, Brainiac still hasn't cracked Superman when the soul crystals activate, their containment being disabled by the drones, who demand their liberty from their ruthless master. Brainiac kills the drones for their insolence, and 2 days later, after relentlessly combing security footage, he finds that Superman secretly communicated with the Brainiac drones, speaking to them in so superhumanly soft tones that the drones' brains registered the sound on a subconscious level, thinking that their own minds were coming up with them wanting to be freed. So this feels like such a Silver Age Superman power, super subconscious speak. It's the type of stuff I love, and it's just a ridiculous power. And Aaron working it into this really dark and dour world is great. I like that we could still have a Superman that has wacky, silly powers, and then have them deployed in such an interesting way as well. It's not just to, pulling a prank on Lois Lane, or, making Lois think that Clark and Superman are two separate people, or something like that. There's a meaning behind the power. All of this spurs Brainiac on, wanting to pillage the brain of a being who can rewrite hard writing data with just his whispers. Meanwhile, up on a helipad, General Sam Lane arrives at the base, unannounced, undergoing a security check thanks to his leg prosthetics. As the Peacemakers check his legs, he pulls guns on them, telling the soldiers he's there for his daughter. So this wasn't on my absolute bingo card, a Sam Lane who is proactive within the story and even goes against his bosses to help out his daughter. He's always been very protective of Lois, but it also feels like there is a limit to what he can do and what he does for her. But leave it to the Absolute Universe to make Sam Lane a total badass Father of the Year. Sam blasts into Lois's cell, throwing her a gun and telling her to cover the rear. Sam wants to leave quickly since, thanks to training the Peacemakers, he knows what they are truly capable of, but Lois wants to go and save Superman first. The one thing I've really kind of noticed about this series, as well as currently rereading the New 52 for my Into the Bleed series, is how similar they are in terms of story beats. So in the New 52, the opening issues had Superman captured by the government, had tests run on him, and then he escaped, thanks in part to Lois and Jimmy and some of the other people, and that's exactly what's happening here. And I like that there's sort of story beats that across decades these stories all seem to have in their plots. I break out from a government facility for Superman or something like that, and it's always really fun. I really like what they were doing in the New 52 in those early Action Comics issues, and I love what they are doing here with Absolute Superman. Kal-El meanwhile watches Jonathan and Martha Kent be attacked by the Peacemakers on their farm, and he tries to tell the soldiers to leave them alone, but they refuse, causing Kal to unleash his anger via the Sunstone crystals, killing the Peacemakers. Raish appears, applauding Superman's actions and how he can save the planet now that he has finally killed. So this is just another of Brainiac's simulations, and I love Aaron writes it in a way where you can see that Brainiac is learning from what Superman did in the previous runs. Like here he has Ra's appeal to his kindness and how he deserves freedom and deserves the liberty, something Superman said to the drones and offered them earlier on in the issue. Of course, Superman sees right through that, killing Raish, and then attacks Primus as she turns up to pretend to be a friend to the hero. The Kents try and tell him not to kill Primus, and the simulation abruptly ends as Lois shoots Brainiac in the back, severing his connection with Cal. Brainiac knows that Lois is too late as she and Jimmy try and free the hero from his restraints. Aaron goes into a real dark territory here as Sam Lane is killed by Talia, and it's a pretty brutal death. It's all done in kind of shadowy, outlines and silhouettes, but Carmine's art really sells it as we see the outline of Sam and he's got this giant knife stuck through his head, quietly talking about how he can't feel his legs before being shot to shit and killed instantly. I'm sad Sam is out of the story so quickly, since I was looking forward to him getting to be a bit more a proactive character and, be with his daughter, and maybe he could actually help out, and maybe he could have even filled a bit of a surrogate father role to Kal-El, and they'd have this little group where they were fighting against Lazarus, but I guess that's not on the cards anymore. That's really quite a shame. Jimmy tries to wake up Superman, socking Brainiac in the jaw when he comes to try and attack Jimmy, telling the villain that Kal-El doesn't like the name Superman. In the simulation, the Kents tell Kal-El that none of this should have happened and they should have been together, but Lazarus took that all from him, and Jonathan knows that they were wrong to tell him to run. He should have stood his ground and fought for his safe space. Cal knows that everyone is trying to tell him what he is supposed to be, and no one listens to what he wants. But the Kents know that and understand and are proud of what he has done there, wanting him to get out there and kill them all. The sinister shift here in the simulation with the Kents is so good. You think he's getting the classic Kent motivational speech, they're so proud of him and what he can do for the world and be the force of good, and then it has that sinister turn in the last sentences where they're like, no, go out, kill them all, take no prisoners. I love that. It also signals that he's still in that Brainiac simulation, and Brainiac's simulation has somewhat succeeded. It's gotten through to him. It's found that sort of magic formula to get through into Superman's brain. Cal explodes from the simulation, grabbing Brainiac as one of the drones frees Sol, telling him to save Superman. As Lois confronts Talia for killing her father, Cal closes his fist around Brainiac's throat, slowly crushing it as Sol arrives around him, telling Cal that he's getting them out of there, but he finds something has happened to Superman and it's caused the sunstone dust to begin to spread throughout the facility. Aaron has been building up to this moment for the last couple of issues where Cal seemingly cracks and we get the quote-unquote evil Superman, but I don't think it's going to be the evil Superman in the actual sense or what everyone thinks. He's not going to go immediately start killing people around the world or anything like that. I think it's going to be a battle within his own mind between what he knows is right and wrong. There's going to be sort of that evil inverse that Brainiac implanted that he's going to have to get over. Sol is also a key factor here to help get Superman back too. It's something Superman never usually has, this suit that is by and large its own character and its own sort of system that Superman uses to regulate his powers. So I can see it being used in a way that will help purge him of whatever Brainiac did to him. I think it would also be kind of a cool twist if in purging Superman of whatever Brainiac did to him, Sol ends up taking on those villainous attributes, and this is how we end up getting something like the Eradicator, or maybe even the absolute Bizarro, a warped version of Superman that's this sort of living suit that's taken on all the worst aspects of the character. Absolute Superman issue 11 kept things thoroughly engaging as Superman battles his own mind and Brainiac, continuing to wonderfully explore Superman's morals in the world that continues to try and punish him for wanting to be a good man. Aaron's exploration of these core characteristics has been so refreshing and just a pleasure to read. He's doing classic Superman stuff, turning it on its head, exploring it in ways we've never really seen before. I like that he's not afraid to challenge these characters and have them do new and interesting things we don't really get with these characters all that much. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he does with a quote-unquote evil Superman now that he has been brainwashed by Brainiac. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.